A West German Lufthansa jumbo jet crashed today seconds after takeoff from the airport at Nairobi, Kenya. The 747 hit an embankment at the edge of the airport and shortly after exploded, but not before 98 persons escaped, many of them virtually uninjured. Among them, the pilot, his entire crew, and 12 Americans. But 59 persons died, and there are seriously injured among the survivors. The plane was on a Frankfurt to Johannesburg flight. The cause of the crash is not yet known. It was the first fatal accident of one of the giant Boeing 747s.
Who helped you?
Oh yeah, the American, the one and only American of the crew.
Right. His name was Tom Scott.
Oh yes, I do remember him because he's the one who really saved me, and I was probably the first person off that plane because of him.
In the story, I think she mentions that you and your husband donated some memorabilia to the
Holocaust Center.
The
Yeah.
Holocaust Center. I think it must have been the Associated Press or one of the major news wires had quoted you as saying, "I wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for Tom Scott." And so,
my God, that must have been years ago.
well, it was exactly 35.
Well, the crash was 25 years ago.
35.
Oh no, 1974.
That's right, 35.
Yeah, we're coming up on 35 years.
That's right. In November.
Yep, in November 20th.
November the 20th.
Yep. And
anyway, our daughter was with us too. She was only 17 at the time, and daughter who was with us, and we spent the whole summer with her and her husband in Colorado each summer. So anyway, she was with us, and she had just finished high school early, so she could take this trip with us.
And what is your?
When we were about to take off in Nairobi, where we'd had a very brief stopover, the pilot made an announcement. Of course, we speak fluent German, but I think he did it in both German and English. And he said that shortly after takeoff, we would be passing by Mount Kilimanjaro.
Right.
And the plane, thankfully, was not fully occupied, and there was a window seat available near where I was sitting. I was sitting in the big center section of the 747, from which you can't really see much of anything. So he said, feel free to move to a seat where you can see better. And I left everything at my seat and went up to this window seat, which happened to be on the very first row next to the galley entrance or exit. And as the crash happened, he stood there and yelled as loud as he could in German and in English to get out.
Rouse.
And I think I was the first person off that plane because I was right there. Started in Los Angeles, and we had gone, and we had gone to Frankfurt and spent a couple of days or a couple of nights there, I believe, which was really the beginning of the tour. And
but my cousin came to. I had a cousin at the time in Schramberg, and he came to see us in the Continental Hotel in Frankfurt.
Yeah. Anyway, that really is pre-crash.
Well,
and then we met the tour group already in Los Angeles, but we did not have a tour guide yet. That person was only joining us in Frankfurt because she lived in Europe. She was killed, by the way. Lovely lady. And we boarded the plane, and the whole group was sitting sort of in the center of the plane. We were right over the wing, which is where we like to sit still to this day, in spite of everything. And that's how we all ended up on the same plane. And the plane was due to have its first stopover as part of the tour in Johannesburg. And it was really basically an African safari to be. So that's where we were headed, Johannesburg. So the tour, well, I'm sure I still have the itineraries and all of that probably in my archives. We're people who don't throw things away too readily, so we have a lot of material, a lot.
Well, let me ask you a question. Had you been had you been to Germany since
Oh, yes. We've been to Germany many, many times.
before this accident?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, I see.
Before and after.
Before and
Before
after.
and after, yes.
I see. So you had been back, and the tour that you were on had nothing to do with the Holocaust.
Nothing whatsoever.
Okay.
It's just, so anyway, it was a small group. I forgot exactly how many people were on it.
13 was the lucky number.
And the tour leader was killed, and as were two very elderly people on the tour. And they were killed either because they were very slow reacting to Tom Scott's yelling loud and clearly to get out as fast as possible. But they were sitting on the wrong side of the plane where the fire first broke out. And we were
well,
we're up there in years. We'll soon have birthday number 88, and I'll have number 83, so sure.
And we are celebrating our 60th wedding anniversary in 8 weeks.
Oh, congratulations! That's
Thank you.
That's quite an accomplishment. 60 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're very active in the Holocaust Center and in a number of other things too. So our life is anything but boring. But I am also an eyewitness to the Kristallnacht.
Yes, I know about that. I read that. That was the article that I read. That you were 12 in 1938, right?
Right, that's
Yep,
right.
exactly.
And I was, it was a very bad experience that I'll never forget. Worse than the airplane crash, I assure
Yeah,
you.
I'm sure. Mr. Kahn, did
By the
you?
way, on the airplane crash, we ran out, as far as we could on the right side of the plane and watched it explode. And as we stood there speechless, some other people were standing with us, and it was a journalist, a British journalist, with whom we were in touch, and he wrote a book. His name is Earl Morehouse. And I imagine he's a survivor. He was a lot younger than I. He and his young wife and two very young children were out there with us. And we thought, when we saw this thing exploding and no other people waiting out there on the right-hand side of the plane, we thought we were the only survivors.
Only survivors. Yeah.
I was born in Germany too. I was born in Baden-Baden.
And how did you? When did you leave?
I left in 1936. I went to school in England.
I see.
And
So-
I came from England to America.
So
Yeah, but he came alone because his parents, he got them out of Germany with knowing people in the right places, who got them out of Germany in the very nick of time. We already made it here in May of 1939, so
we were very lucky.
by that we still had a few months left, but we were all very lucky.
So how did you?
That daughter Nancy and Carl were sitting several rows behind me in their original seats, so they just followed where I was going.
Wow.
Because it was obvious that there was a slide going down there by the door. That he by the way got that door open. The girls were unable to budge it. It was so heavy.
Oh, really? Huh?
Yes. So he came up from his station. I think it wasn't even his station to begin with. I'm not even sure about that. So he is the only one who had the physical strength to open that big door. There was a whole group of German nuns who was going back to their various missions in Africa. And I'm what you call a do-gooder. At least I've tried that all my life. And so there were a bunch of empty, they took their assigned seats, which were way in the back of the No, not in the back of the plane. They were scattered all throughout, and I happened to go to the back for whatever reason before takeoff. And I said to them in German, of course, I said, here are all these empty seats, and you could easily claim 2 or 3 of them and stretch out during the night instead of sitting strapped into your little seat the whole time. And they did, and most of them were killed.
Oh my
and
goodness.
so I felt very guilty about that.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's
for years.
Isn't